Yoon Do-hee was an ordinary college student. She was kind to everyone. Too kind. Her friend Hanjun constantly borrowed money. Every time, he claimed another family emergency. Even though Do-hee suspected he was lying, she still gave him everything she had. After sending him the money, only 3,100 won remained in her bank account. Things weren't any better at college. Her teammates dumped the entire group project on her. One excuse after another. Do-hee quietly accepted everything without complaining. That evening, while walking home hungry, she hears familiar voices coming from a nearby alley. Curious, she quietly peeks inside. What she sees completely shatters her world. Hanjun is standing there with his friends, on his feet, a pair of expensive limited edition sneakers. One of his friends asks where he got the money. Hanjun bursts into laughter. Yoon Do-hee. So she's basically your personal ATM? Hanjun grins. All I have to do is pretend one of my relatives dies every week. The group bursts into laughter. They joke about how she does everyone's assignments without ever complaining. Someone laughs that she'd easily win first place for being the biggest pushover. At that moment, everything finally clicks. Nobody ever appreciated her kindness. They were simply using her. Just then, her phone starts ringing. It's her mother, without asking how she's doing. She orders Do-hee to wash the dishes and set the table for her brother. Do-hee finally speaks up. Can't he set his own table? Her mother's voice immediately turns cold. Can't you even do that for your one and only brother? Something inside Do-hee finally snaps. She shouts back. Why do I always have to take care of him? He's already grown up. The call ends. Tears begin streaming down her face. She keeps walking, barely noticing where she's going. A blinding light suddenly appears. A motorcycle races straight toward her. Before she can even react, everything goes black. When Do-hee opens her eyes again, she isn't lying in a hospital. She's inside an extravagant bedroom. She stares at her reflection. Looking back at her is a breathtaking young woman, long violet hair, crimson eyes. Without thinking, she blurts out, "She's so pretty." Then reality hits. Thinking it has to be a dream, she slaps herself. The sting shoots across her face. It's real. She's not dreaming. Then suddenly, a tray slips from one of the maid's hands. Plates and cups shatter across the floor. Food scatters everywhere. The room falls silent. The maid's face instantly turns pale. She drops to her knees, trembling from head to toe. She repeatedly begs for forgiveness. She is completely confused. Why are they so terrified? Then she remembers. She's no longer Yoon Do-hee. She's Deborah Seymour, the infamous villainess from the novel she once read, the woman who tormented everyone around her. The character readers hated the most. Before she can process everything, the bedroom door slowly opens. A tall man with silver hair walks inside. It's Georgi Seymour, the Duke of Seymour and her father, one of the Empire's greatest mages. Ever since his wife died giving birth to Deborah's younger brother, he grew cold towards everyone. Even his own children. Without asking if she's okay, he immediately scolds her. She had gone on a hunger strike and even hurt herself, all because of a single treasure, the legendary pink diamond. To him, it was nothing more than childish behavior. He gives her one final warning. If you embarrass the Seymour family again, there will be consequences. Without waiting for a reply, he turns around and leaves. The massive doors slam shut behind him. Deborah can only stare at the entrance. How can a father be this cold? Behind her, the maid is still trembling. She continues begging for mercy, not wanting to scare her any longer. She quietly says, "Leave." The servant quickly cleaned her mess and hurriedly rushed out of the room. Now alone, Deborah slowly sinks to the floor. Everything finally crashes down on her. Just yesterday, she was an ordinary college student. Now, she's living as the novel's greatest villainess. After sitting there for a while, she finally calms down. Then an unexpected thought crosses her mind. Maybe being a villain isn't so bad after all. 10 days have passed. Little by little, Deborah adjusts to her new life. Every morning, the servants prepare everything before she even asks. An extravagant breakfast is already waiting for her. Compared to her previous life, it feels almost unreal. For the first time, she enjoys breakfast in complete peace. A small smile appears on her face. It's definitely better to be a feared villainess than a pushover. Watching the servants busily maintain the enormous mansion, she can't help but laugh. If this is what being grounded looks like, I'd happily stay grounded forever. A little later, a young woman respectfully bows to her. She introduces herself as Helen, a professional dress designer. Moments later, servants begin carrying dress after dress into the room. Luxurious gowns pile up one after another. Only then does Deborah realize something. As the Duke's daughter, she doesn't have to visit clothing stores. The finest designers come to her. The room is overflowing with beautiful dresses. Deborah quietly looks at them. She doesn't say a word. The silence stretches on. Helen starts sweating. She can't help remembering their last meeting. Back then, Deborah had suddenly barged into her boutique. She demanded a custom-made dress, but the workshop was already fully booked. Deborah simply stared at her. She never raised her voice. Yet that cold stare alone terrified everyone in the shop. Ever since then, rumors claimed Lady Deborah had become even more short-tempered. Now, standing before her once again, Helen prepares herself for another outburst. Meanwhile, Deborah carefully examines every gown, the fine stitching, the soft fur trim, the sparkling gemstones, the elegant designs. She genuinely likes them. Just as she's about to compliment Helen, the fur brushes against her nose. It starts to itch. She desperately tries to hold back a sneeze. The harder she fights it, the stranger her expression becomes. Helen completely misunderstands it. She panics. Lady Deborah isn't satisfied. She hurriedly turns to her assistants. "We'll make them even better. Add more jewels. Make everything even more luxurious." Before Deborah can explain, Helen and her assistants rush out, taking every dress with them. The room suddenly falls silent. Deborah finally lets out a long breath. "I almost sneezed." Only then does she realize everyone mistook her expression for disappointment. A little later, she walks past a mirror. Her reflection catches her eye. She smiles. Looks really are everything. In her previous life, her gentle appearance attracted scammers, pushy salespeople, and strangers constantly asking for favors. Now, one cold glance from Deborah's crimson eyes is enough to make people back away. For the first time, she actually enjoys looking intimidating. Just then, a maid appears outside the room. "My lady, your tutor is waiting." Deborah instantly freezes. Tutor. Her peaceful morning is officially over. As she walks through the enormous Seymour mansion, she looks around in amazement. Priceless paintings cover the walls. Golden ornaments decorate every corner. Luxurious furniture fills every hallway. No wonder everyone envied the Seymour family. As she keeps walking, more of Deborah's memories begin returning. The original Deborah hated studying. She skipped lessons, ignored her homework, and nearly drove her tutor to resign. Realizing she's about to meet that same tutor, Deborah lets out a helpless sigh. Just then, someone steps into her path. It's Velrek Seymour, Deborah's older brother, one of the Seymour family's greatest talents. In every generation of the Seymour family, its heirs are born as twins, each born with potential to lead. The highly talented twins are fated to compete in a fierce battle to become the head of the family. And that's probably why most of Seymour turns out to be sociopaths. He calmly looks at her. "I keep hearing about your foolish behavior. The family personally chose your tutor. So behave yourself today," without waiting for an answer. He walks away. Deborah quietly watches him leave. Then another memory suddenly surfaces. Both Velrek and the firstborn, Rosard, work day and night to become the head of the Seymour family. A few moments later, Deborah arrives at the study. She slowly opens the door. Inside, a young man rises to greet her. His name is Patrick. Patrick places a thick history book in front of her. 100 years of Astea. The lesson begins. Patrick explains that beneath the imperial family, the Astea Empire is supported by 4 great noble houses: the Seymour family, the House of Mages, the Montes family, the House of Elementals, the Orgos family, the House of the Sword, and the Biscotti family, the House of Gold. Among them, the Seymour family oversees the empire's Mage Tower, under the authority of the Emperor and the Crown Prince. Mergus Seymour, the first head of the Seymour family, helped the first emperor, and the goddess herself, establish the Astea Empire. Because of that, he's remembered as one of the empire's founding figures. Hearing that, Deborah can't help but think to herself, so this family is basically untouchable. Even if I caused a little trouble, I'd probably get away with it. But the thought only lasts a second. Her expression suddenly changes. Something doesn't add up. If the Seymour family held this much power, then what exactly did the original Deborah do to end up meeting such a tragic fate? After the theory lesson, Deborah's practical magic class begins. Inside the training hall, the magic tutor politely greets her, but the tutor's trembling hands reveal the truth. She's terrified, and she has every reason to be. The original Deborah was every tutor's worst nightmare. Whenever she failed to use magic, she blamed her instructors. She screamed at them, smashed furniture, and frightened countless teachers into quitting, realizing everything they had suffered. Deborah quietly apologizes to them in her heart. As the lesson begins, she falls deep into thought. The Seymour family is famous for producing the Empire's greatest mages. So why? Is Deborah the only one who can't even sense mana? Then another memory surfaces. The original Deborah wasn't born cruel. She spent her entire life surrounded by exceptionally gifted mages, while being completely incapable of using magic herself. Day after day, that sense of inferiority kept growing, until it twisted her into the villain everyone feared. Deborah already knows how her story ends, and she's determined to change it. After all, she's finally getting used to this new life: luxurious baths, the finest desserts, servants attending to her every need. At first, it all felt unfamiliar. Now, she's actually starting to enjoy it. But no matter how comfortable her life becomes, she never forgets the future waiting for her. In the original story, the Empire's saint was respected even more than the emperor himself, and Mia was believed to be the reincarnation of Saint Nayla. The crown prince became interested in Mia, and later falsely accused Deborah of using black magic. That crime carried the death penalty. But because Deborah belonged to one of the Empire's founding families, her life was spared. Instead, she lost everything and was exiled to a monastery. Fortunately, the story has barely begun. She hasn't even met Mia yet. She remembers the first chapter of the novel. An heir of the Montes family is gravely wounded by a demonic monster. Mia helps him recover. Pilev asks how he can repay her. Mia simply smiles. "I only wish for your highness's speedy recovery." That simple answer captures his heart. From that day on, Pilev falls deeply in love with Mia. Later, while searching for the perfect birthday gift for her, he discovers the legendary pink diamond, a jewel whose color perfectly matches Mia's hair. Deborah also desperately wanted that diamond, so the two competed for it at the auction. The bidding climbed higher and higher until no one else could compete. In the end, Pilev Montes won the pink diamond and gifted it to Mia. That single gift changed Deborah's destiny forever. When Deborah later saw Mia wearing the rare diamond at the academy, jealousy consumed her. She snatched it away, and the priceless jewel shattered. Deborah had liked Pilev since childhood, and her jealousy only made her bully Mia even more. Determined to avoid that future, she gives herself two simple rules. First, never bully Mia. Second, never become interested in the pink diamond. Compared to the miserable life she lived before, surviving as the villainess should be much easier. But before she can change the future, she needs the support of the most powerful person in the Seymour family, her father, Duke Seymour. Meanwhile, in another part of the Empire, a mysterious young man finishes his work. He proudly holds up a brilliant blue diamond. A satisfied smile spreads across his face. It's finally done. The gem sparkles even brighter than his previous creation. Standing beside him, the Vice Guildmaster can't hide his excitement. After the overwhelming success of the pink diamond, he's certain this one will become another sensation. He recalls how it all began. When the Guildmaster first proposed creating colored diamonds, everyone laughed at the idea. No one believed they would ever sell. Then, news spread that Pilev Montes had fallen in love with a young woman whose hair was pink. Seeing an opportunity, the Guildmaster created the Empire's very first pink diamond. But creating it wasn't enough. He secretly hired people to spread rumors across the capital that a rare pink diamond was about to be auctioned. The rumors spread like wildfire. Even Deborah heard it. She became obsessed with obtaining the pink diamond. Soon, the entire capital was talking about it. Nobles competed fiercely to own the rare jewel. Meanwhile, back at the Seymour estate, Duke Seymour quietly reviews documents in his office. Then, something catches his attention. For several days, Deborah hasn't caused a single problem. No servants have filed complaints. Nothing has been broken. She hasn't demanded expensive jewelry. The more he thinks about it, the more suspicious he becomes. What is she planning this time? Before he can think any further, the office door suddenly flies open. A servant rushes inside, completely out of breath. "Your Grace," Lady Deborah is digging up her Grace's rose garden. The Duke's expression instantly changes. That greenhouse belonged to his late wife, without saying another word. He rushes out of his office. On the way, only one thought fills his mind. How dare she take out her anger in his wife's flower garden? He storms into the greenhouse, expecting complete destruction. The moment he arrives, he shouts, "Deborah, what are you doing here?" Deborah calmly turns toward him. "Father." That single word catches him completely off guard. For a brief moment, looking at her, he sees his late wife. Deborah calmly replies, "I was just taking a walk and looking at the roses." Those words are exactly what his wife used to say. His expression hardens again. Is she trying to imitate her mother? What a wicked thing to do. He coldly questions her. "I thought jewels were the only thing you cared about. What suddenly made you interested in flowers?" Deborah calmly answers, "These flowers are no different from diamonds. They're preserved by magic. They have no fragrance, and they'll never wither. Just like diamonds, they never change, so I don't see the difference." The Duke is left speechless. Then he replies, "Jewels are nothing more than objects that satisfy your vanity. How can you compare them to the flowers your mother cared for?" Deborah quietly shakes her head. "These aren't the kind of flowers Mother loved. What makes flowers beautiful is that they wither in winter and bloom again in spring." The Duke's eyes narrow. "So this ridiculous excuse is how you're avoiding responsibility?" Instead of answering, Deborah quietly hands him a letter. "Mother wrote this herself." The Duke freezes. He immediately recognizes the paper. It belonged to his late wife. He slowly unfolds the letter. As he reads, his eyes widened. The words are exactly the same as what Deborah had just said. For the first time, his expression softens. Unable to hide his surprise, he quietly asks, "Where did you find this?" Deborah simply points toward the flower bed. "Right here, Father." As soon as Duke Seymour leaves, Deborah finally lets out a long breath. That was terrifying. "I can't believe I had to risk my life just to hand him a letter. And it's all because the original Deborah was such a spoiled brat." Fortunately, she remembers what happened in the original story. The Seymour twins kidnapped Mia. Rosard brought her to the rose garden by force. He says, "This garden and all the jewels can be yours if you just say you will be with me." When Mia refused, he lost his temper. "Are you foolish? Or are you trying to provoke me?" While trapped there, Mia accidentally discovered the late Duchess's hidden box. That same night, she secretly dug through the flower bed and uncovered a collection of the Duchess's letters and a diary. Later, she used those letters to strike a deal with Duke Seymour and escaped from the Seymour twins. Remembering all this, Deborah hesitates. Can I really take this treasure? The letters changed the entire story. Then she quietly smiles. Sorry, Mia, but I'll make sure my crazy brothers never get the chance to hurt you, as she looks around the greenhouse. Something suddenly doesn't make sense. In the novel, Mia only used the Duchess's letters to negotiate with the Duke. Then why didn't she use the diary? Meanwhile, Duke Seymour sits alone in his office. His daughter's words keep echoing in his mind. What makes flowers beautiful is that they wither and bloom again. Without realizing it, he activates a spell. A massive blue magic circle spreads across the room. Then, a forgotten memory suddenly returns. Years ago, while practicing wind magic, he accidentally preserved the entire greenhouse. If that spell had never existed, he would have found his wife's letters long ago. Just then, someone knocks on the door. To his surprise, Deborah walks in. She's carrying tea and freshly baked desserts. On the outside, she wears a confident smile. Inside, she's desperately encouraging herself. Don't be scared. You can do this, she politely says. I heard you've been working too hard lately. Then she thinks to herself, he's the one with the money. I need to stay on his good side. The Duke isn't convinced. Since when did you start caring about my workload? His cold voice almost makes Deborah freeze. Then, to her surprise, he says, well, why are you standing there? Sit down, Deborah blinks. He didn't throw her out. After asking the servants to leave, she personally serves him a lemon tart. She remembers reading something in the Duchess's diary. The Duke never liked sweets, except lemon tarts. They were the dessert he always ate whenever he went on dates with the Duchess. Sure enough, he quietly takes a bite. Deborah watches him nervously. Her plan is working. After a moment, the Duke finally asks, "So, why did you come here? Are you expecting a reward for finding that letter? What you found is priceless. But if you're here for the pink diamond, you should return to your room." Deborah simply smiles. "I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to give you something." She places another sealed envelope on the table. The Duke's eyes widened. It's another letter, written by his late wife. "There are more," Deborah nods. "But I won't give them all to you today." The Duke's expression hardens. "You plan to bargain? Using my wife's memories?" Deborah gently shakes her head. "No, if I give you every letter at once, you'll read them all in a single day. And after that, there'll be nothing left. I want you to have something to look forward to." The room falls silent. The Duke quietly studies his daughter. For the first time, she no longer resembles the selfish girl he once knew. After a long silence, he slowly stands up. "I've been sitting for too long. I should take a walk." Then he looks at Deborah. "Come with me," as they begin walking. He casually says, "The tea is rather strong. If you drink too much, you won't be able to sleep. Next time, I'll have them prepare something lighter, or perhaps hot chocolate instead." Deborah freezes. "Next time, wait. Is he actually worried about me?" Then the Duke quietly adds, "And one more thing. We should talk more often." Deborah smiles. Her biggest gamble has finally paid off. The story continues with Deborah sitting across from Duke Seymour as he quietly reads another letter left behind by his late wife. Every time he reads one, he becomes completely absorbed. Watching him, Deborah jokes to herself that she's become nothing more than a messenger carrying letters between two people. When he finishes, the Duke finally looks up. "Deborah," he asks if she's deliberately bringing him these letters after long days of work. "Is it all for that pink diamond?" Without hesitation, she answers, "I'm your daughter, and mother's daughter too. I wanted to become the bridge connecting both of you." Those words leave the Duke speechless. After a long pause, he invites her to have a meal together that weekend. Deborah gladly agrees. The Duke then asks, "You've been grounded for quite a while now. Why do you seem so happy?" Deborah thinks to herself that living comfortably in the mansion has been far more enjoyable than she expected. But what she says is, "I realize that staying home and having tea with you can be just as delightful." The Duke narrows his eyes. "What is it that you want from me? You're starting to scare me. Just be honest if you're after something." Before Deborah can answer, a servant enters the room. "Your Grace, everyone is waiting in the meeting hall." Taking the opportunity, Deborah quickly stands. "Since you're busy, I won't keep you any longer. See you this weekend, Father." As soon as she steps outside, she leans against the door and lets out a long sigh. Winning over my father is exhausting, but little by little, she can already feel him changing. Dragging herself through the mansion after the mentally draining conversation, she suddenly runs into her older brother. He sneers, "Even the way you walk speaks volumes about you. How crude and hopeless." Deborah clenches her fists. Why does this jerk keep picking fights with me? But instead of wasting her energy, she simply walks away. She has far bigger goals now. The promised weekend finally arrives. Father and daughter share a quiet meal together at a restaurant. Deborah happily enjoys every dish, while Duke Seymour silently watches her. For the first time, the atmosphere between them feels almost natural. During the meal, the Duke asks, "Do you have another letter for me today?" Deborah smiles. "Of course." The Duke then admits something unexpected. Waiting for each new letter has become something he genuinely looks forward to. Hearing that, Deborah smiles to herself. Her plan is working. The Duke realizes that spending time with Deborah has quietly become the highlight of his days. Before, his life revolved around work and his distant sons. Every day felt like an endless routine. Now, he actually looks forward to seeing his daughter. Deborah smiles. "Today, I wanted to deliver the letter in a different way. Please, close your eyes. I'll read it to you instead." The Duke chuckles. "Are you telling me you've taken an interest in theater now?" Deborah freezes for a moment. She never imagined this cold, emotionless man was capable of making a joke. Then she begins reading aloud. The poem, "My heart is a white flower," gently fills the quiet restaurant. Its words remind the Duke of his late wife far more vividly than ink on paper ever could. When she finishes, she softly asks, "How was it?" After a long silence, the Duke opens his eyes. "Your mother would have loved hearing it this way." Deborah then reveals the truth. The poem was never inside the letter. It was written by Lang Schubert, Marian's favorite poet. She had searched for the original poem herself, so her father could experience it the way his wife once had. The Duke lowers his gaze to the letter in his hand. Only then does he realize how much thought Deborah put into this simple surprise. For the first time in years, his daughter's kindness reaches his heart. The distance between them grows a little smaller. And for the first time since Marian's death, they no longer feel like strangers living under the same roof. Meanwhile, back at the Duke's mansion, Velrek is furious. He demands an explanation from a servant. Why does Deborah keep going in and out of Father's office? And why has Father lifted her punishment? Velrek thinks something is not right. He thought Deborah would get kicked out once, and for all when he heard she had dug up our mother's flower garden, but instead of getting severely punished, she is having tea with Father every day. Deborah is the shame of Seymour family. If I were my father, I would have kicked her ages ago. Then, looking at a document on his desk, a cold smile spreads across his face. She will be wed and gone right after her debutante in the autumn. The groom would be Louis Gazelle. Later, Velrek met with Deborah. She already knows this conversation won't end well. Without wasting time, he begins insulting her, calling her talentless, worthless, and an embarrassment to the Seymour name. Deborah tries to walk away, but Velrek held her face and says, "You are dumb and you have no talent for magic. All you have is youth and that face of yours. But I took it upon myself to find you a suitable partner." Deborah replied in anger and confusion, "What the hell are you talking about?" He replied, "Louis Gazelle. You will see him soon, so remember the name." She recalls the name Louis Gazelle. Wasn't he the cheeky pervert who kept hitting Mia? Deborah angrily rejects the idea. "Who gave you the right to decide my marriage?" Velrek mocks her without hesitation. According to him, no respectable noble family would ever want someone with Deborah's terrible reputation. Then he tells her to be grateful. That's when Deborah finally says something no one expected. "I'm not getting married." The hallway falls silent. Velrek can't believe what he just heard. He reminds her that noblewomen don't have the freedom to reject marriage. If you voluntarily refuse to carry out the duty of a noble lady, you would be entering the monastery. Before leaving, he confidently pats her shoulder. "You'll thank me someday." Deborah watches him disappear down the hallway. What a sociopath. Only after he's gone does reality hit her. According to the Empire's laws, every noblewoman must marry after reaching adulthood. And this year, Deborah has officially come of age. If she's forced into an arranged marriage, everything she's worked for will collapse. She immediately questions one of her maids. What happens if a noblewoman refuses to marry? The frightened maid explains the consequences. She could lose her family name, her noble status, her title. She could even be sent to a monastery. Deborah quietly falls into thought. Then this ending is no different from the novel's original ending. Simply refusing isn't an option. Then she remembers something from the original novel. That a noble lady once rejected a marriage proposal, yet she was never punished. A noblewoman can refuse marriage if she earns extraordinary achievements for the empire. One legendary woman gained that right after becoming a powerful battle mage and war hero. Deborah immediately dismisses the idea. She can't use magic. She can't fight. She's never surviving a battlefield. Then, a new idea suddenly flashes through her mind. If I can't earn freedom with strength, I'll buy it. If she can earn enough money, she can purchase her own noble title. Then no one will be able to control her future. But there's one problem. Despite being the Duke's daughter, none of the Seymour family's wealth actually belongs to her. She doesn't have nearly enough money to make her plan possible. Now a new question appears. How am I supposed to earn that much money? As Deborah struggles to find an answer. A knock echoes through her room. She tells the visitor to come in. The door slowly opens. Standing there is Duke Seymour. Looking directly at his daughter, he calmly says, "Deborah, let's have a little chat." Deborah immediately assumes the worst. He's here to talk about my marriage? Desperate to keep his attention, she quickly reaches for another one of Marion's letters. But the Duke surprises her. I'm not here for the letters. Instead, he asks a question she never expected. What do you want? He wants to buy her a gift. Deborah is completely stunned. The Duke explains that she's done so much to reconnect him with Marion's memories that he wants to repay her kindness. Not wanting to waste the opportunity, Deborah carefully makes a request. She simply asks for a small investment to start a business. The request catches the Duke completely off guard. After a brief pause, he agrees without hesitation. Deborah can hardly believe it. Thank you, Father. As the Duke leaves, he quietly reflects on everything that's changed. Deborah never asked him to buy the pink diamond. She never demanded expensive gifts. Instead, she wanted to earn money on her own. In his mind, there's only one explanation. She sacrificed her own wishes because she didn't want to burden him. Smiling to himself, he thinks she's finally grown up. As her father, he decides he should reward that kindness. Turning to his attendant, he gives a single order. I don't care what it costs. Win the pink diamond in auction. A few days later, Deborah receives a letter from her father. As she reads it, she freezes, along with his heartfelt thanks. He has sent her an enormous amount of money, and the legendary pink diamond. Deborah is speechless. Wait, what just happened? She only asked for startup money. Instead, her father misunderstood everything and showered her with rewards. Leaning back in her chair, she can't help laughing. Holding the pink diamond up to the light, she admires its beauty. It truly is breathtaking. Then reality hits. If Pilav sees me wearing this, he might become interested in me. Exactly what she wanted to avoid. She briefly considers selling the diamond, but quickly abandons the idea. Her father would never forgive her. Instead, she focuses on the real prize, her business capital. Clapping her hands excitedly, she grins. I've finally got my startup money. Now she can begin building the future she's been planning. Just as she's organizing her plans, she notices another unfamiliar letter. Before she can investigate it, the story shifts elsewhere. Inside the Blancraft Guild, the guildmaster receives the auction report. He expected Pilav Montes to win the pink diamond. Instead, the winner was Duke Seymour. Everything he predicted was wrong. Only one person could have influenced that outcome, Deborah Seymour. Curious about her increasingly strange behavior, he gives a new order. Investigate Deborah Seymour again. I want to know everything. At that moment, a servant announces that a client has arrived. He replies, let them in. A hooded figure silently walks inside. Long purple hair falls over her shoulders. The guildmaster's eyes widen. Deborah Seymour, why has the Duke's daughter come to see him? Outwardly, Deborah appears completely calm, but inside, her heart is racing. Because the man sitting before her is one of the most influential and mysterious figures in the Empire. The mastermind behind the Blancraft Guild, and the Crown Prince's greatest source of information. Deborah remembers exactly how dangerous he is. In the original story, the Crown Prince tells the Guildmaster, Deborah Seymour keeps bothering Mia. I want to get rid of that vicious woman, but it won't be easy since she's a direct descendant of the Seymour family. If you find a way to eliminate her, I'll give you whatever you want. The Guildmaster accepts the offer. He spreads rumors about a sorcerer capable of placing curses on anyone. Since Deborah hated Mia, she got in contact with the sorcerer to place a curse on her. Unaware that she has walked into a trap, Deborah has a voodoo doll made. Using that opportunity, the Guildmaster frames her for practicing forbidden black magic. The fabricated evidence is so convincing that even the powerful Seymour family can't save her. As promised, the Crown Prince rewards the Guildmaster with land and gold. Pleased with the outcome, the Guildmaster seals the deal using his favorite seal, one shaped like his pet cat. Deborah realizes something important. Without the Guildmaster, the Crown Prince wouldn't have been able to carry out his plans so easily. She noticed a letter bearing that same cat-shaped seal. If the Crown Prince could use the Guildmaster to achieve his goals, then why couldn't she? Right now, what Deborah lacks most is someone she can rely on. The Guildmaster will do anything, as long as the price is right. And Deborah has one thing she doesn't lack: money. Wouldn't that make them the perfect partners? With that in mind, she decides to approach the Guildmaster herself. Following the address she found in the letter, she arrives at his location. She recognizes the place immediately. This jewelry store is the first to display the legendary pink diamond. Before long, it will become the most famous jewelry store in the capital. Deborah steps inside. She immediately asks about the pink diamond. But that isn't her real reason for coming. Lowering her voice, she quietly speaks the guild's secret code. "I'm here to make a deal with the seventh fang of the golden dragon." The manager's expression changes. He steps forward and respectfully says, "I'll take you to the golden dragon, my lady." A few moments later, Deborah is brought into the guildmaster's office. Looking around, she realizes she never knew the jewelry store secretly belonged to the Blankcraft Guild. The guildmaster studies her in silence. He never expected Princess Deborah to come here herself. As the conversation begins, the orange cat suddenly stands up, its fur bristles. It starts growling directly at Deborah. She immediately raises both hands. "Easy, let's all calm down." The cat circles around Deborah. It sniffs her for a moment, then happily rubs against her legs. A second later, it rolls onto its back, asking to be petted. Relieved, Deborah gently strokes its head. The cat instantly begins purring and refuses to leave her side. Inside, Deborah can't help but think, thank goodness catnip exists in this world too. Across the room, the guildmaster is completely stunned. His usually unfriendly cat has fallen in love with Deborah within minutes. When he calls the cat back, it completely ignores him and stays beside Deborah. For the first time, the guildmaster can't hide his surprise. Trying to make sense of it, he jokes, "What exactly did you do to my cat?" Deborah keeps a straight face. She reminds herself not to show even a hint of fear. She had practiced this cold expression for days in preparation for meeting him. In an icy voice, she replies, "If you want to know, it'll cost you 99 gold. I normally charge 100, but since I have a request for you, I'll give you a 1 gold discount." The guildmaster bursts into laughter. Meanwhile, Deborah is sweating inside. As she studies him more carefully, she realizes he looks nothing like she expected. She thought an informant would be thin and frail. Instead, he has broad shoulders, a strong build, and looks younger than she imagined. He's also clearly skilled in magic. After calming down, the guildmaster smiles. "Princess, you're the first client who's ever piqued my curiosity." The tense atmosphere finally fades. Even so, Deborah reminds herself to keep acting cold. The guildmaster leans forward. "So, what kind of request brought you all the way here?" Without hesitation, Deborah answers, "My first request is to purchase all the information you have on Louis Gazel." The guildmaster begins explaining. Louis Gazel rules territory on the empire's western border. Last year, a massive silver ore deposit was discovered there. Since then, the Gazel family has become one of the wealthiest noble families in the region. Deborah immediately recalls something important. The Seymour Duchy lies in the east, while the Gazel territory is deep in the west. The enormous distance makes her suspicious. So Velrek is trying to send me somewhere so far away that I'll never be able to return to the Seymour family. This isn't a marriage, it's exile. She folds her hands and looks directly at the guildmaster. "I'm not asking for general information. I want to know his weakness." The guildmaster smiles. "If you're looking for a weakness you can exploit, that information comes at a price." Deborah calmly crosses her arms. "So, he wants payment up front." Without another word, she places a heavy pouch onto the table. The pouch bursts open. Brilliant gemstones spill across the table, sparkling in the light. The guildmaster silently watches the pile of jewels. With a serious expression, Deborah says, "I hope you understand. This is only the beginning." She isn't trying to intimidate him. She simply wants to make one thing clear. If he proves himself capable, she's willing to become a long-term client. First impressions are everything. If you show me how competent you are, I'll show you how deep my pockets are. The guildmaster quietly studies the gemstones. For the first time, he realizes Deborah isn't exaggerating. Inside, Deborah reminds herself of one important rule. When spending money, never act like you care. If she complained about the cost the way the crown prince would, the guildmaster would value her less. She smiles inwardly. "I'm a much better client than the crown prince, aren't I? You'd rather do business with me, right?" The guildmaster finally nods. Since the princess has shown me such sincerity, It would only be fair for me to return the favor. Everyone has a skeleton hidden in their closet. With a little digging, I'm sure I'll find Louis Gazel's. Seeing the confident smirk on his face, Deborah has a thought. If he can't find a weakness, he'll probably create one. It's the same smile she remembers from the novel, the one he wore while plotting to send Deborah to the monastery. Having him as an enemy would be terrifying, but if he's on her side, he'll become one of her greatest allies. As the meeting continues, Deborah asks her second question. Can noble titles be bought? The guildmaster nods. Yes, the price depends on the title and on the seller. She immediately asks, then what's the average cost of a barony? Without a word. He writes down a number and slides the paper across the table. The moment Deborah sees it, her expression freezes. What? That's 10 billion won? Her hands begin trembling. I thought it would cost around 1 billion. How am I ever supposed to earn that much? The guildmaster quietly watches her reaction. After a brief pause, Deborah forces herself to regain her composure. She smiles. Well, it's not that much. Inside, however, she's screaming, there is no way I'm marrying that perverted jerk. The guildmaster replies, that's a small amount for a princess who owns a necklace worth as much as a townhouse in the capital. Deborah nods. Now that you mention it, this is my third request. I'd like to sell the pink diamond. The guildmaster immediately looks up. What? He can't hide his surprise. I thought you caused a huge scene, and were even grounded because of that diamond. Why would you sell it now? Deborah calmly answers. I don't need it anymore. She explains that keeping an expensive jewel serves no purpose. What she truly needs is money. The guildmaster silently observes her. Noticing his curiosity, Deborah smiles faintly. You seem to have forgotten your duties as an informant. If you want information from me, you'll have to pay what it's worth. Only then will I answer your question. The unexpected reply makes the guildmaster smile. I seem to have forgotten my duties. My apologies. Inside, Deborah lets out a sigh of relief. At least she hasn't offended him. She reminds herself that everything will be fine as long as he never realizes she's actually a pushover. Otherwise, he'd squeeze every last coin out of her. The guildmaster asks, are you planning to sell the pink diamond without Duke Seymour finding out? Deborah nods. Yes. The guildmaster smiles. I know a way to sell it, without the Duke ever learning about it. Deborah's eyes light up. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted. The guildmaster calmly adds, in return, I want 50% of the final selling price. Deborah's smile immediately disappears. She immediately calls him a swindler, but he calmly explains that pink diamonds will lose value once more are discovered. If he sells it now, he can get more than double its auction price, making a 50-50 split profitable for both of them. Though annoyed by his confidence, Deborah realizes his logic is sound. Even so, she isn't ready to agree to an equal split and counters with a 30-70 deal. Smiling, he replies, if you tell me why my cat, Cookie, has been drooling over you, I'll accept 70-30. Just as she's about to agree, Deborah notices Cookie peacefully lying beside him. Since catnip is only known as medicine in this world, no one realizes it attracts cats. She quickly concludes that the guild master secretly loves cats. If she gives away that information now, she'll lose an important bargaining chip. It's always better to keep the other party curious during a negotiation. She changes her mind and says, let's go with 50-50. With a disappointed smile, the guild master sighs. I see you're not falling for it. Deborah then asks one final question. She explains that although she owns expensive jewelry, she has no gold coins she can freely spend. If she buys anything using the ducal family's check, every purchase will be reported directly to her father. Since an unmarried noblewoman who hasn't made her debut cannot open a bank account, she has no safe way to keep secret funds. The guild master explains that most people either bury their gold on their own land or hide it inside secret underground vaults. However, he can tell Deborah isn't interested in such troublesome methods. Then he asks with a grin, if I show a little creativity, what will the princess show me in return? Realizing he's asking for payment, Deborah places a rare high-grade mana stone on the table. She explains that such stones are sent directly to the magic tower as soon as they're mined, making them almost impossible for ordinary people to obtain. She had secretly taken this one from her father's collection. Impressed by the priceless item, the guild master accepts it. In return, he gives Deborah a magical pouch enchanted with spatial expansion, weight reduction, and summoning magic. It can store the equivalent of 50 large vaults of gold, always weighs about a pound, and instantly returns to its owner whenever summoned. Deborah is thrilled, realizing she's practically carrying a personal bank. The guild master then prepares a contract. While reading it, Deborah notices a strict, non-disclosure clause forbidding her from revealing anything about the pouch. She immediately realizes he's using it to hide assets and evade taxes. Without thinking, she asks, "Is there any particular reason you made this pouch?" "It's convenient," he replies. "Of course," Deborah says, "but the amount of gold you can hide in it is still limited." The moment she sees the guild master's expression, she freezes, realizing she may have accidentally revealed that she understands tax evasion. Trying to recover, she quickly shares another idea. "If I had spatial magic like yours, I'd buy a remote island, create a ghost company there, teleport all my gold to the island, and have every transaction go through that company." Since tax inspectors couldn't easily investigate assets on a distant island, it would become the perfect tax haven. She thinks to herself that it would be a tax haven capable of making even 21st century conglomerates jealous. The guild master listens quietly before praising the idea as astonishing. However, he explains that it's impossible. Only a ninth-class archmage could teleport objects across an entire sea, while even Deborah's father, the Empire's greatest archmage, is only 7th class. Even so, he admits her idea is incredibly innovative. The guild master gladly agrees to continue their partnership, remarking that finding another client with Deborah's wealth, influence, creativity, and even sense of humor would be nearly impossible. Deborah brushes off the compliment and tells him to finish the contract. As he seals the document, she notices something unusual. Instead of using the familiar cat-shaped seal, he stamps it with a swan-shaped seal. Quietly, she wonders if he's dissatisfied with the agreement or no longer wants to do business with her. Once the contract is complete, the guild master hands her a business card. He explains that if she ever wants updates on her commission, she doesn't need to return to the Atra district. Instead, she can visit his informant in the Yans district. The moment Deborah reads the card, she's stunned. The informant is none other than the owner of Maysand, the city's most famous dessert shop. Realizing the guild master also owns one of the city's most successful businesses, she concludes he's even wealthier than she first imagined. Deborah thanks him and says she'll visit next time. The guild master simply smiles. Then, until next time. After Deborah leaves, the guild master drops his disguise and returns to his true appearance, a handsome young man with striking golden hair. The meaning of the black swan seal is finally revealed. It represents an unpredictable event. Thinking back on their meeting, the guild master quietly admits that Deborah is nothing like the rumors describe. "I'm someone who can't resist my curiosity." Quietly repeating her name, Deborah Seymour, he reflects on everything that happened during their meeting. Despite her arrogant reputation, he realizes she is neither incompetent nor foolish. In fact, she is far more capable than the rumors suggest. His thoughts return to Deborah's proposal of buying an island in a low-tax nation and creating a ghost company to avoid taxes. Instead of one island, he imagines establishing multiple ghost companies in sovereign territories outside the Asthaian Empire. By carefully adjusting the ledgers to maximize profits, even the emperor would struggle to keep track of the taxes. He smiles to himself, wondering how Deborah managed to come up with such a devious idea. Then another thought crosses his mind. For the first time in a long while, he admits to himself, it was fun. Remembering Deborah's final remark, "If you want to know, it'll cost you 99 gold." He can't help smiling again. At that moment, Miguel Drain, a vassal of the Visconti family, appears before him and offers to personally investigate Deborah Seymour. The guild master refuses. Since the academy's new semester is about to begin, and Deborah also attends the Imperial Academy, he knows they'll inevitably meet again. Miguel is surprised that his lord intends to return to the academy after constantly bribing people to overlook his truancy. The guild master ignores the comment. The guildmaster gives another order. He summons the guild manager and announces that he will create a new color diamond. When asked what color he has in mind, he simply replies, "Something like lavender." 10 days later, Deborah rides through the city in a carriage while thinking about her next business opportunity. As she looks outside, she notices a quiet alley with almost no foot traffic. She immediately rejects the location. Then she thinks about opening a dessert business, but quickly realizes cakes and similar desserts have already saturated the market. Simply copying existing shops won't succeed. If she wants to dominate the market, she needs a product unlike anything else. Still deep in thought, she gazes out the carriage window and quietly realizes, it's already spring. The new academic year has begun. Since every noble child is required to attend the Imperial Academy, Deborah has no choice but to return. Fortunately, the academy focuses more on socializing than academics, so studying isn't her biggest concern. What truly bothers her is the possibility of running into the male lead. Before heading to the academy, Deborah decides to check on the progress of her commission. She orders the coachman to take her to Maisonde. When she arrives, she notices the famous dessert shop is packed with customers, and many of the desserts have already sold out. Seeing the overwhelming demand, she realizes once again that the guild master has exceptional business sense. As she watches the bustling cafe, another business idea begins forming in her mind. If she creates a product aimed at wealthy customers and controls its availability through scarcity, people will naturally desire it even more. She calls over an employee and points to the coffee. The employee apologizes, explaining that the drink is incredibly bitter and unpopular, and they are even planning to remove it from the menu. Ignoring the warning, Deborah orders the same coffee along with a slice of whipped cream cake. When the order arrives, she smiles, convinced she has found the perfect combination. Cake and coffee. A perfect pairing. She confidently takes another sip of the coffee. The next second, she begins coughing violently. Watching from nearby, the employee quietly mutters, "I told her. I wouldn't recommend it." Trying the coffee only confirms Deborah's opinion. It is bitter, sour, poorly roasted, and badly brewed. While recovering, she overhears a nearby conversation. Several noble girls excitedly discuss the handsome young men attending the academy. They first mention Lord Diarra Orgo, praising him as a prodigy capable of controlling his aura at just 19 years old, and claiming his swordsmanship may soon rival the crown prince's. Deborah immediately recognizes him as another of Mia's love interests, and quietly tells herself that anyone crushing on her is only setting themselves up for disappointment. The conversation soon shifts to Lord Pilav, whom the girls admire for his fiery red hair and handsome appearance. Another girl says she had hoped to see Velrek as well. He is so elegant and intelligent. She remembers her brother abusing and mocking her in the worst way possible. How is he elegant? Listening to their endless admiration, Deborah sarcastically wonders whether any of them have actually spoken to these men. She jokes to herself that marrying one of them might become something to regret. One of the girls proudly declares that the person she wants to meet most is Lord Isidore Visconti. The name catches Deborah completely off guard, as it's the first time she has ever heard it. According to them, he's so handsome that seeing his face once is worth selling their souls. They praise everything about him, from his golden hair to his appearance, insisting every woman should see him at least once in her life. Listening nearby, Deborah quietly wonders why someone as famous as Isidore was never mentioned in the original novel. The conversation suddenly shifts to another topic. The girls begin gossiping about Deborah, who purchased the pink diamond from the auction. They mock her, saying the diamond doesn't suit someone like Deborah, and compare it to putting a pearl necklace on a beggar. They continue listing rumors about her, calling her arrogant, condescending, and even a psychopath. Deborah silently listens, surprised to learn details she never knew. The gossip continues. The girls point out that although Deborah belongs to the powerful Seymour family, she is the only member who cannot use mana. At that moment, Deborah decides she has heard enough. As she stands to leave, she accidentally knocks over her tray. Trying to save the dishes, she loses her balance, sending the tea and desserts crashing onto the floor. Looking at the mess, Deborah quietly mutters, "Shit." For a moment, she considers simply walking away. Then she immediately changes her mind. If she leaves now, everyone will think she's someone who silently accepts insults. She refuses to become a pushover. Turning toward the girls, Deborah calmly asks, "Are you done talking?" The cafe instantly falls silent. She thanks them for the entertaining conversation, only to realize she has no idea what to say next. She calmly approaches the girls and says, "It seemed you had a lot to say about me." The frightened nobles immediately begin trembling. Deborah calls them insignificant and asks why they're suddenly stuttering after speaking so confidently behind her back. She tells them that if they were only going to cower in fear now, they should have kept their mouths shut from the beginning. Unable to respond, the girls bow their heads and apologize for their disrespect. Watching them, Deborah quietly thinks that, for her first real argument, she's actually doing fairly well. Then she raises the teacup still in her hand. Calmly, she gives a single order: "Apologize." When the woman refuses, Deborah pours the remaining tea over them. The noblewoman screams in shock. Looking around at everyone's stunned expressions, Deborah quietly concludes that she has finally managed to behave the way the real Deborah would have. Thinking she's caused enough trouble for one day, she decides meeting the guild master is no longer possible and leaves the cafe. She also realizes that if the real Deborah had been there, the incident probably wouldn't have ended so peacefully. Later, the mysterious guild master is working when a servant reports that Princess Deborah had a confrontation with one of Count Eight's daughters, ending with Lady Eight bursting into tears. After hearing the report, the guild master concludes that Deborah is even smarter than he originally thought. Since she visited personally this time, Deborah deliberately sent it because his commission is progressing too slowly, making it a warning for him to work faster. Miguel suggests a much simpler explanation: that Deborah merely lost her temper during the argument and accidentally broke the cup. The guildmaster completely rejects the idea. Confident in his own interpretation, he tells Miguel they'll eventually discover whose judgment is correct. Miguel quietly points out that ever since meeting Princess Deborah, his lord has been behaving in ways he never did before. After letting out a long sigh, the guild master finally reaches a decision. If he ever meets Deborah again, he will personally uncover the truth. No matter what it takes, he will find out exactly what she did to tame Cookie. Inside a prison cell, a bloodied young man is mercilessly beaten for failing to obtain the pink diamond. Pilev curses him for making him look like a fool and calls him worthless. He asks whether Lady Mia has arrived at the manor. A servant explains that she is running late because she has been treating too many injured patients. The scene shifts to Mia using her divine powers to heal commoners. He questions why someone with such extraordinary holy power would waste her abilities on ordinary peasants. But then he understands that the reason he likes her is because she is not materialistic or greedy. Later, Mia finally arrives at Pilev's manor. Pilev thanks her for accepting his invitation, and the two share a meal together. Remembering that it is her birthday, Pilev surprises Mia with a celebration. Touched that he remembered, Mia happily thanked him. When she apologizes for arriving hungry after spending the day helping patients, Pilev simply smiles and tells her they should eat first. While watching her, he finds her innocent personality adorable. During the meal, a servant announces that Mia's admission to the Imperial Academy has been approved. Overjoyed, Mia says it has always been her dream to study there. Pilev then presents her with a birthday gift. After opening the box, Mia is stunned but politely refuses to accept such an expensive present. Watching her refuse, Pilev silently regrets not winning the pink diamond at the auction. He imagines how perfect everything would have been if he had given that diamond to Mia instead. In his fantasy, Mia gratefully accepts it, thanks him for everything, and is moved to tears. The daydream suddenly ends. Returning to reality, Pilev realizes Mia rejected the gift before even caring about its value. His thoughts immediately turn to Deborah. Convinced she ruined everything by purchasing the pink diamond, he bitterly concludes that he detests everything about her. After a while, we see that Mia quietly sits by the window of her residence. She lets out a tired sigh. Ophelia, her helper, notices her staring outside and asks, "What are you looking at?" She replies, "I was looking at a flower blooming on a branch." Ophelia replies that it bloomed at the wrong time and will freeze to death before morning. She tells Ophelia that Monty's family gave her this jewelry. Examining the necklace, Ophelia remarks that such a modest design doesn't suit Mia and warns that people would laugh at her and call her a fallen noble if she wore it. You would need a proper dress to go with a necklace like that. I guess Lord Monty's is as crude as the rumor says. She added, if this were the pink diamond though, who knows, it could have been a different story. What a pity. As Mia sets the necklace aside, she notices the Academy acceptance document on the table. Mia silently stares at it. A few days later, Deborah visits a boutique to collect a newly completed dress. The designer excitedly explains that they created something flashy, yet simple, classic yet modern, suitable for both parties and formal events. Listening to the contradictory description, Deborah realizes the finished dress perfectly matches those words. Seeing herself in the mirror, she genuinely loves the result. She happily thinks, "It suits me perfectly. It's so pretty." Unable to stop smiling, she adds, "I get to live with this perfect face every day." Finally, she concludes, "Deborah's face is exactly my style." Suddenly, the large mirror begins falling. The boutique staff panic and rush to stop it. The heavy mirror crashes onto the floor, but Deborah remains completely unharmed. The employees repeatedly apologize. Looking at herself afterward, Deborah realizes this body possesses the strength of 3 grown men, incredible stamina, and rarely becomes sick. Smiling, she decides such overwhelming physical strength is exactly what a villainess needs. Then she happily concludes she'll probably live a long and healthy life. Soon afterward, a servant informs Deborah that her carriage is waiting outside. Preparing to leave, she grumbles to herself, "I really hate school. Can't I just not go?" She notices one of the carriage is for her, but who is the other for? Then she notices a young boy standing nearby. After a long pause, Deborah quietly thinks, that child is Henrique Seymour, her younger brother.